Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're tackling a really significant period in U.S. history, Theodore Roosevelt's Square Deal.
Right. A time of massive change, industrially, socially.
Exactly. And these policies, this Square Deal, it was all about trying to bring some balance and fairness to all that change.
Yeah. We've got some great info here, and our goal really is just to unpack the main characteristics, understand what defined this era under Roosevelt.
Let's do it. So first things first, the Square Deal itself. What are we talking about in simple terms?
Okay, so the Square Deal, fundamentally, it's Roosevelt's big idea for fairness. He's looking at workers, big business, consumers.
All these competing interests.
Exactly. And he's saying, look, everyone deserves a fair shot, a square deal. It wasn't about guaranteeing equal results for everyone, more like making sure the game wasn't rigged from the start.
Making sure the starting line was fair.
Oh, it's a good way to put it. And, to sell these ideas, to get people behind him, he used the presidency in a pretty unique way, the bully pulpit.
Ugh, the bully pulpit. That term sounds a bit odd today, maybe.
Right, but bully back then also meant like excellent or first rate.
Okay, so he saw the presidency as this amazing platform.
Totally. A prime spot to talk directly to the American people. He wasn't shy about using it to explain his reforms, build support, and frankly, put pressure on Congress or businesses to act. He saw it as a way to shape public opinion for what he believed was right.
A really active use of the office's influence.
Definitely. Now, a huge part of putting that Square Deal into action involved dealing with those giant corporations, the trusts, which brings us to trust busting.
Right, trust busting. This is probably what many people associate with TR.
Yeah.
So what was the goal here?
Well, basically, Roosevelt thought some of these massive companies, these trusts, were getting too powerful. They controlled entire industries, stifled competition.
And that hurt consumers, right? Prices, choices.
Precisely. So trust busting was his effort to regulate them, sometimes even break them up if they were acting unfairly. But, and this is important, he wasn't against big business just for being big.
Okay, so there was a nuance there. He didn't just go after every large company.
No, exactly. He made this key distinction. He talked about good trusts and bad trusts.
Good versus bad. How did he define that?
Well, good trusts were, maybe large and efficient, but operated fairly, didn't crush all competition unfairly. Bad trusts were the predatory ones, the ones using their muscle to exploit consumers or destroy smaller competitors.
And those are the ones he targeted.
Those were the ones he went after, yeah. Using tools like the Sherman Antitrust Act, trying to restore some fair competition. It was about behavior, not just size.
Got it. Okay, so that's business regulation. What about labor? The Square Deal had implications there too, right? The 1902 coal strike is a big example.
Oh, absolutely. Huge example.
Yeah.
So 1902, coal miners strike. They want better pay, safer conditions. A pretty common story in some ways.
But coal was vital back then. Heating homes, powering industry.
Yeah.
A strike was a serious national issue.
It really was. And what made Roosevelt's response so different, unprecedented, was that he didn't just automatically side with the owners. That was the usual pattern.
Presidents usually sent in troops to break strikes, didn't they?
Often, yes. Or just sided firmly with capital. Roosevelt, though, he saw the public suffering because of the fuel shortage, and he decided the government needed to step in as more of a mediator.
So he tried to broker a deal.
He did. He called both the mine owners and the union leaders to the White House. He basically pressured them, saying the national interest required a settlement. He even hinted the government might take over the mines if they didn't agree.
Wow, that's a strong move.
It was, and it worked, mostly. They reached a compromise. It wasn't everything the miners wanted, but it was seen as a victory for labor and a clear sign that under the Square Deal, workers' concerns would at least be heard by the government. It shifted the dynamic.
A real example of trying to balance those interests.
Definitely. Now, sticking with the theme of protecting the public, let's talk consumers. Upton Sinclair's book, The Jungle, that had a massive impact.
Oh, absolutely massive. The Jungle was, it was stomach-churning. Sinclair exposed the horrifyingly unsanitary conditions in the meatpacking industry.
Yeah, descriptions of diseased meat, rats, just awful stuff. He actually meant it more as a critique of worker exploitation, but people really latched on to the food safety aspect.
Understandably, the public was disgusted and, frankly, scared. And Roosevelt read it.
He did, and apparently he was just as appalled. He launched his own investigation, which confirmed Sinclair's reporting was largely accurate.
So the public outcry, plus the official confirmation,
Gave Roosevelt the leverage he needed. He pushed hard for the Meat Inspection Act of 1906. This set federal standards for meatpacking. required government inspection. Basically, it aimed to make sure the meat people were buying was safe.
A huge step for public health.
Enormous. And it wasn't alone. There was another key piece of consumer protection legislation right around then.
Right, the Pure Food and Drug Act, also 1906.
Yep. Similar goal, protect consumers, but this time from harmful or mislabeled foods and medicines. Think about all the patent medicines back then, making wild claims, sometimes containing dangerous stuff.
Like narcotics or alcohol, without people knowing.
Exactly. This act required accurate labeling listing ingredients and restricted harmful substances. It was really the foundation for the FDA, for modern consumer protection around food and drugs.
So regulation of business, mediating labor disputes, protecting consumers. What else was central to the Square Deal?
The last big piece, and one Roosevelt was personally passionate about, was conservation.
Ah, yes. Teddy Roosevelt and the national parks.
Precisely. He was a lifelong outdoorsman and deeply believed in protecting America's natural landscapes and resources, not just for their beauty, but for future generations. Sustainable use was part of it, too.
So this wasn't just about setting aside pretty places, it was resource management.
It was both. He dramatically expanded the national park system, created national forests, wildlife refuges, protected vast amounts of land.
And set up structures to manage them.
Absolutely. The U.S. Forest Service was established under his watch, specifically to manage those forest reserves scientifically. He really embedded conservation into national policy. Millions and millions of acres were set aside. It was a core part of his vision.
Okay, so if we pull back and look at all these pieces, trust busting, labor mediation, consumer protection, conservation, what's the common thread? What really defines the Square Deal overall?
I think, like you said earlier, it really comes back to fairness. And crucially, the idea that the federal government has a legitimate role, even a responsibility, to step in and ensure that fairness.
Yeah, it's about balancing competing interests, making sure one group, whether it's big business or unchecked producers, doesn't completely dominate or harm the others.
Right. And Roosevelt wasn't afraid to use the power of his office, that bully pulpit, and the power of the federal government itself to achieve that balance. That was a pretty significant shift in thinking about government's role.
He really saw government as an umpire, maybe,
Yeah.
trying to make sure the rules were fair and followed.
That's a good analogy. And the impact was huge, wasn't it? Many of these regulations, these agencies, the protected lands, they're still fundamental parts of American life today.
Absolutely. It set a precedent for government involvement in the economy and in protecting citizens that continued long after him.
Definitely laid a lot of groundwork.
So hopefully this deep dive has given everyone a good sense of what the Square Deal was all about. To wrap things up and get you thinking a bit more, we've got a few questions.
Yeah, things to mull over first. Thinking about all those different aspects, trust busting, labor, consumer safety, conservation, which one do you think was the most significant characteristic of the Square Deal? And, why that one in particular?
Second, how did Roosevelt's approach to that 1902 coal strike really differ from how presidents before him tended to handle labor disputes? What was the key shift there?
Third, consider the Meat Inspection Act and the Pure Food and Drug Act. In what ways do those laws, or at least the ideas behind them, still impact our daily lives? Can you see their legacy around you?
Fourth, why was conservation such an important piece of Roosevelt's agenda? What drove his commitment to protecting natural resources?
And finally, a broader one. Think about that core idea of a square deal, this push for fairness and balance between different groups. Can you think of any modern issues, challenges we face today where that kind of approach might be relevant or useful?
Just some food for thought based on what we discussed. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.